Welcome to Life Stories, where we dive into tales that inspire, challenge, and remind us of the strength within us all. Today's story follows Madison, a woman who uncovers long-buried secrets about her family's empire, a journey that reveals betrayal, courage, and the true meaning of legacy, as she faces her mother's web of lies and her father's unfinished fight for justice. Madison learns that the power of truth can transform even the darkest of situations. Stay tuned as we unravel her extraordinary journey. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's incredible tale. The cream-colored envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a silent storm, waiting to be unleashed. Its golden, embossed lettering shimmered softly in the morning sunlight. For 3 days, I had avoided it, pushing it aside as though ignoring it would make it disappear. But this morning, my phone buzzed with an urgent text from my cousin Jordan, forcing me to confront the inevitable. "Have you opened it yet?" Jordan's message read. I sighed, gripping my mug of coffee as though it could steady the strange weight in my chest. My name is Madison, and that envelope represented everything I'd spent the last 5 years running from. The expectations, the suffocating sense of control, and the world of pretenses my family seemed to thrive in. To them, appearances were everything, and my decision to break free from their well-manicured mold made me an outlier, a disappointment. "Just open it already," Emily called from the couch. She'd been working on her laptop, or pretending to, for the last hour. But her attention had clearly been on me. "Your phone's going crazy, and I can feel your anxiety from here." I glanced at her, one brow raised, but her expression was kind, not teasing. Emily always knew how to give me a push when I needed it most. Reluctantly, I picked up the envelope, its smooth surface cool against my fingers. I turned it over in my hands, hesitating until my phone buzzed again. "Open the damn thing, Madison." Jordan's voice seemed to echo through the text. "Fine," I muttered under my breath, ripping the envelope open. A heavyweight card slid into my palm, its elegance almost ostentatious. It probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. "You are cordially invited," I read aloud, my voice dripping with sarcasm, "to celebrate Evelyn Carter's 55th birthday gala." Emily, now sitting at the kitchen counter beside me, peeked over my shoulder. "Your mother never does anything halfway, does she?" "Apparently not," I replied, but my voice caught as I pulled out a smaller handwritten card. I didn't need to read the signature to know it was my mother's handwriting. The precise loops of each letter were unmistakable. "Your presence is required," I read aloud, my chest tightening as I reached the final words. "Come learn your fate." "Well, that's not ominous at all," Emily said, trying to lighten the mood. My phone buzzed again. I sighed and put it on speaker as I answered. "Jordan, I was just about to call you. Did you open it?" Jordan's voice was tense. "Yes. And, Madison, you need to be there. Trust me on this." I glanced at Emily, who gave me a shrug that said, "He's your cousin, you decide." "Why?" I asked. "So Mom can humiliate me in front of half the city again. Last time I showed up to one of her events, she spent 20 minutes telling everyone how disappointed she was in her free-spirited daughter who makes finger paintings." Jordan's tone softened, almost pleading. "It's different this time. Leighton called me yesterday. Something big is coming." Hearing the name of the family lawyer gave me pause. Leighton rarely got involved unless it was serious. What exactly did he say? He wouldn't give details, but he mentioned Grandma Ruth's letter. My breath caught. That letter. The one my grandmother had given me 6 months ago, just before she passed. I crossed the room to my desk, pulling open the bottom drawer. There it was, creased and worn from the number of times I had read it. "What letter?" Emily's voice was soft, her curiosity genuine. "My grandmother left me a letter before she died," I said, unfolding the paper. She said that when the time came, I'd need to be brave. That she'd left me something that would change everything. But I had to wait for the right moment. And you never told me because it felt private. I admitted. Special. I traced my grandmother's signature with my fingertip. Memories of her flooding my mind. Grandma Ruth had always been my sanctuary in the storm of my family's expectations. She encouraged my art, celebrated my choices, and never once tried to force me into someone I wasn't. Madison? Jordan's voice broke through my thoughts. The gala is in 3 days. Mom's going all out. Hosting it at the Grand Plaza. She's invited half the city's elite. Whatever this is, it's big. Emily's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. I just hacked into the event planner's database. She's not kidding. Over 300 people are confirmed, including every major business contact your family has. Great. I muttered. The perfect audience for whatever public shaming Mom has planned. Or, Emily said, a mischievous glint in her eye. The perfect chance for you to finally stand up to her. Your grandmother must have had a reason for leaving you that letter. Maybe this is the moment she was talking about. I read my mother's note again. Come learn your fate. The words sent a chill through me. After years of trying to shape me into her vision of perfection, the right schools, the right clothes, the right career, was this her final attempt at control? I folded the letter and stood taller. I'll be there, I told Jordan. But I'm doing this my way. After hanging up, I turned to Emily. What are you thinking? She asked. Her gaze flicking between me and the unfinished painting of my grandmother resting on my easel. I touched the locket around my neck, feeling its familiar weight. I'm thinking it's time to open this, I said, referring to the locket. Grandma said in her letter that when I needed answers, I'd find them here. Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement. Then let's see what secrets she left you. My fingers fumbled with the clasp. It hadn't been opened in years. When it finally clicked, a tiny folded paper fell into my palm. The moment I unfolded it, I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that my life was about to change forever. The Grand Plaza Ballroom was a sight to behold. A glittering masterpiece of crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, and polished marble floors. It sparkled like something out of a fairy tale. But no amount of elegance could hide the tension that hung in the air. As I stood near the entrance, smoothing down the emerald green dress I'd chosen deliberately to clash with my mother's pastel pink suggestion, I felt the familiar weight of anxiety creep into my chest. Emily, ever the calming presence, stood beside me, squeezing my arm reassuringly. Ready for this? She asked in a whisper. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, forcing a smile. Jordan joined us, looking sharp in his tuxedo. Heads up, he muttered, nodding toward the center of the room. Hurricane Evelyn incoming at 2 o'clock. My mother appeared in the crowd, a vision of perfection in a white silk gown and diamond jewelry. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes were like ice when they landed on me. Madison, she said with that practiced society warmth, leaning in for a brief, stiff embrace. Darling, you came. Though I see you couldn't manage to wear the dress I sent over. Mother, I replied, equally cordial. Happy birthday. Yes. Well, she said, sparing Emily a disdainful glance. I don't recall the invitation including a +1. Sophie's my date, I said firmly. You did say to bring someone special. Before she could respond, Leighton, the family lawyer, approached, holding 2 champagne flutes. Evelyn, the governor just arrived, he said. You're needed by the stage. With a strained smile, my mother excused herself. As she walked away, Leighton pressed a glass into my hand. Drink this, he murmured. You'll need it. His eyes darted meaningfully to my clutch, where I had tucked away the tiny piece of paper I'd found in my grandmother's locket. Is everything in place? I asked under my breath. He nodded. We're ready. Just be sure you're prepared. The knot in my stomach tightened. I glanced at Emily, who had been furiously typing on her phone. Guest list confirms over 300 attendees, she whispered. Everyone who matters in this city is here tonight. Perfect. I muttered. The bigger the audience, the better. A familiar voice made me freeze. Madison. You look different. I turned to see Ryan, my ex, standing just a few feet away. He was as impeccably dressed as always. His smile sharp and calculated. Ryan. I said. My voice cool. I didn't expect to see you here. Your mother invited me, he replied smoothly. Said something about keeping family friends close. Before I could respond, Emily stepped in, her tone biting. Family friends who dated her for 2 years and then dumped her after a suspicious meeting with said mother. Ancient history, Ryan said, his smile faltering slightly. Though I'm curious why you both look so prepared for something. Ryan. Jordan interrupted smoothly. I think the senator's daughter was asking about you earlier. She's by the fountain. Ryan hesitated, his sharp gaze flicking between me and Emily, before retreating into the crowd. I downed the champagne in one gulp. He knows something's up. He suspects. Leighton corrected. But he can't know. Nobody does except the 4 of us. I took a deep breath, clutching the locket at my throat for reassurance. My mother had planned this night down to the finest detail. But what she hadn't planned on was the truth unraveling before her eyes. 20 minutes later, the room grew quiet as my mother ascended the stage. She stood radiant under the spotlight, her smile practiced and perfect as she addressed the crowd. Family means everything to me, she began, her voice smooth and confident. Which is why I have an important announcement to make. I exchanged a glance with Emily, who nodded slightly. Showtime. Madison, my mother said, her tone saccharine as she gestured toward me. Darling, come join me on stage. As I stepped forward, my heart pounded in my chest. Phones began buzzing across the room, quiet at first, but growing louder, their chimes rippling like an unspoken alarm. I caught the flicker of confusion in my mother's eyes as she glanced at her phone, her expression shifting from confidence to alarm. The documents Emily had uploaded were already spreading. Pixel by pixel. Screen by screen. What's happening? She asked, her voice faltering for the first time. I turned to the audience, my voice steady despite the chaos around me. Why don't you tell them? Mother! The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, and someone gasped audibly. My mother's composure cracked as she gripped the microphone tighter. This is obviously some sort of hack, she said, forcing a smile. A mistake. No mistake, I said, pulling the folded document from my clutch. I have the proof right here. The ballroom erupted in whispers as I held up the paper bearing my grandmother's signature and my mother's. Tell them how you forged Grandma Ruth's signature to take control of the company. Tell them how you've been embezzling from the family foundation for years. Her expression hardened, her mask of control slipping as she hissed. What have you done? I stepped back, my voice calm but resolute. The truth. Mother. I'm giving them the truth. The spotlight felt harsh, but for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I stood tall, knowing this was only the beginning. The crowd was no longer hers. The murmurs that had once been whispers were now audible waves of outrage and confusion. My mother's carefully curated facade was shattering right before her eyes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. You ungrateful little. Careful. Mother, I said, shaking her off. Everyone's watching. Leighton stepped forward, his calm and composed demeanor now commanding the room's attention. As the family's legal counsel, he said, his voice carrying over the buzz of the crowd, I can confirm that these documents are authentic. Elizabeth Carter left very specific instructions about their release. My mother's mask finally broke, her face twisting with fury. You knew about this. You helped her with this betrayal. Betrayal? Leighton's tone didn't waver. Elizabeth knew everything. Evelyn. She spent her final years gathering evidence to protect what truly mattered, her legacy. The crowd erupted in gasps and exclamations. People were no longer discreetly checking their phones, they were openly reading the documents Emily had uploaded. Scrolling through proof of financial misconduct, offshore accounts, and falsified charity records. She forged her own mother's signature, someone whispered loudly. The family foundation was a sham, another voice added. Horrified, I stepped back, letting the chaos unfold. Sophie appeared at the edge of the stage, her phone in hand. It's trending, she whispered. Major outlets are already picking it up. My mother lunged toward Sophie, but Jordan stepped between them. His voice firm. Enough. Evelyn. It's over. The ballroom had descended into complete disarray. Business partners were making frantic phone calls. Society friends were abandoning their pretense of civility, whispering harshly amongst themselves. Reporters, tipped off by Sophie's press release, were already gathering outside, waiting for more details. My mother turned back to me, her voice shifting from anger to desperation. Madison, she pleaded, her tone breaking. We can fix this. Whatever you want, your art gallery, your own foundation, we can make it happen. Just stop this madness. I touched the locket at my throat, feeling the weight of its history, of my grandmother's foresight. You still don't understand, I said, meeting her eyes. This isn't about what I want. This is about consequences. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the ballroom as security guards appeared at the entrance. Leighton gave them a curt nod. They're here to secure the premises and any remaining documents, he explained. Standard procedure in cases of fraud. My mother's expression hardened, the steel returning to her gaze. You'll regret this, she spat. All of you. The guards approached the stage. But my mother wasn't done. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising in desperation. This is a misunderstanding. My daughter is disturbed, jealous. Even. She's always been unstable. But no one was listening anymore. Her audience, once loyal and enchanted, was deserting her. Her world, built on a foundation of lies, was crumbling before her eyes. As security escorted her from the stage, I felt a strange mixture of emotions, triumph, yes, but also sadness. This wasn't just about exposing her. This was about breaking free from the chains she had tried to bind me with my entire life. Jordan appeared at my side, his phone buzzing. The press wants a statement, he said, his voice low. I glanced at Sophie, who gave me an encouraging nod, and then back at the stage where my mother had stood moments before. The spotlight was still on me, but this time, I wasn't afraid. Clutching the locket one last time, I turned to the ballroom doors. Let's go, I said. The real story starts now. The reporters outside were a sea of flashing cameras and shouting voices. I stepped into the chaos, flanked by Sophie and Jordan, feeling stronger than I ever had before. This wasn't just about setting the record straight, it was about reclaiming my voice, my truth, and my future. As the cameras captured every step, I realized that this moment wasn't just the end of my mother's empire. It was the beginning of something far greater. The reporters didn't let up for a second, their shouted questions blending into a chaotic hum around us as we navigated the sea of cameras. I felt their lenses zooming in, capturing every detail, the faint tremble of my hand as I clutched the locket, the resolute set of my jaw, and the undeniable gravity of what had just unfolded. Madison, can you confirm the allegations against your mother? Was this about money or revenge? What happens to the company now? I stopped in front of a microphone, forcing myself to breathe steadily. My heart was pounding, but Sophie's presence at my side anchored me. She gave me a small nod, as if to say, "You've got this. This isn't about revenge," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the swirl of emotions in my chest. "This is about accountability. The truth matters, no matter how painful it may be." My grandmother, Ruth Carter, believed in building something real and meaningful. Today, I honor her legacy by ensuring that the truth she worked so hard to uncover is known to the world. The questions kept coming, but I had said enough. Jordan guided me through the crowd toward a waiting car, and as the doors closed behind us, the noise of the outside world finally faded. "Are you okay?" Sophie asked gently, her eyes searching mine. "I don't know," I admitted, sinking into the leather seat. "It's all a lot." Jordan, sitting across from me, leaned forward. "You did the right thing, Madison. Grandma would be proud." His words warmed something inside me, but they also reminded me of the weight I still carried. This wasn't just about exposing my mother, it was about understanding the deeper truths my grandmother had hinted at in her letter. The car pulled up in front of the family estate, its towering silhouette casting long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawns. It had once been a place of grandeur, but now it felt cold and hollow, a monument to a legacy built on lies. Inside, the estate was a whirlwind of activity. Federal agents moved through the halls, collecting documents and cataloging evidence. Leighton stood near the staircase, deep in conversation with two agents. When he saw me, he approached, his expression unreadable. "Madison," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "There's something you need to see." He led me to my grandmother's old study, a room I hadn't stepped foot in since her passing. It smelled faintly of lavender and old books, a scent that instantly brought me back to childhood afternoons spent at her side. On the desk was a weathered envelope addressed to me. My name, written in her familiar cursive, made my breath hitch. "What's this?" I asked, though I already knew. Leighton's gaze softened. "She left it for you with strict instructions. She said you'd know when the time was right to read it." With trembling hands, I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight in my palm. I could sense the significance of its contents even before I opened it. As I unfolded the letter, my grandmother's voice seemed to echo in my mind, steady and full of conviction. "My dearest Madison, if you're reading this, it means the truth has begun to emerge. But there is still more to uncover. I've left you a trail, a way to finish what I started. You'll find the next step at the lake house, in the boathouse behind the third panel on the east wall. Trust yourself, Madison. You have your father's courage and your own fierce heart. You are capable of more than you realize." Tears blurred my vision as I read the final lines. She had always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. "Madison." Sophie's voice was soft, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. I turned to face her, the letter clutched tightly in my hand. "We need to go to the lake house," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Whatever she left there, it's the next piece of the puzzle." Jordan and Sophie exchanged a glance but didn't hesitate. "Then let's go," Sophie said firmly. The drive to the lake house was quiet, the weight of my grandmother's words hanging heavily in the air. As we turned onto the winding road leading to the property, memories of summers spent there flooded back. The laughter, the warmth, the sense of safety, all of it felt like a lifetime ago. When we arrived, the lake house loomed before us, its dark silhouette framed against the moonlit sky. The boathouse sat just beyond it, its weathered exterior hiding whatever secrets my grandmother had left behind. "This is it," I said, stepping out of the car. My heart pounded in my chest as I moved toward the boathouse, the letter still clutched in my hand. Sophie and Jordan followed closely, their presence a quiet reassurance. As I reached the third panel on the east wall, I felt the faintest tremor of fear. What if this changed everything? With trembling hands, I pried the panel loose. Inside was a small, waterproof document case. My breath caught as I pulled it out, its weight solid and real in my hands. "What's inside?" Sophie whispered. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. As the contents were revealed, I knew without a doubt that my grandmother had been right. The truth wasn't finished yet. It was only just beginning. The rain began to fall as I sat on the edge of the boathouse. The opened document case resting on my lap. Inside, there were several folders, a USB drive, and a handwritten letter from my father. My fingers trembled as I carefully unfolded the letter. The ink slightly faded but still legible. My dearest Madison. It began. If you're reading this, it means I wasn't able to finish what I started. But I trust you, with your brave heart and your grandmother's wisdom, to carry this forward. There are truths buried deep within this family, truths that will change everything you know. I tried to protect you from them, but now I see you were meant to uncover them. Inside this case, you'll find the evidence I gathered. Use it wisely, and know that I love you more than words can express. Tears welled in my eyes as I ran my fingers over his signature. It felt like he was speaking to me across time, bridging the years of loss and questions I had never dared to ask. Madison, Sophie said gently, pulling me from my thoughts. She had been watching from the doorway, her face a mixture of curiosity and concern. What does it say? I passed her the letter, unable to speak for a moment. While she read, I picked up the USB drive, feeling its cool metal against my skin. Whatever's on this, I said, my voice shaky. It's what my father was willing to die for. Jordan, who had been scanning the papers in one of the folders, looked up sharply. There are financial records here, massive transfers to shell companies, names of offshore accounts. And look at this, he added, holding up a printed email. It's a correspondence between Mom and someone called the facilitator. They're discussing plans to redirect foundation funds. These transactions start just weeks after Dad's accident. The word accident hung heavy in the air, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. You think, my voice faltered. You think she was involved in his death? Sophie's expression darkened. It's possible. If he was getting close to exposing her, she would have done whatever it took to protect herself. I stared at the papers in Jordan's hand, my mind racing. My father had always been a man of integrity, someone who believed in doing what was right no matter the cost. If he had found out about the corruption within our family, I had no doubt he would have tried to stop it. Madison, Jordan said cautiously, you need to see this. He handed me another document, a letter signed by my mother and the facilitator. The words blurred as I read them, but one sentence stood out: this will ensure the family's future, even if Daniel can no longer be a part of it. My breath caught in my throat. The implications were clear, and they hit me like a physical blow. Do you think I couldn't bring myself to finish the sentence. Jordan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We don't know for sure. But this, he gestured to the evidence spread out before us, this is enough to start asking questions. Sophie was already pulling out her laptop, her face set with determination. If your dad kept these files, there might be more. Let's see what's on this USB drive. As she plugged it in, we all leaned closer, the dim light from the laptop illuminating the shadows in the room. The drive contained a series of folders, each labeled with cryptic titles: Project Legacy, Facilitator Communications, Ruth's Directives. Project Legacy, Sophie murmured, clicking on the first folder. Inside were spreadsheets, emails, and a list of names: judges, senators, CEOs. My grandmother had built something far more powerful than I had ever imagined. She wasn't just running a business, Sophie said, her voice tinged with awe. She was building a network, one that could control everything from legal decisions to corporate policies. But Mom twisted it. I whispered, the pieces falling into place. She turned it into something corrupt, something to serve her own interests. Jordan nodded grimly. And Dad must have found out. That's why he kept all this. He was trying to dismantle it from within. A sudden noise outside made us all freeze. Footsteps. Heavy and deliberate. They're here, Sophie whispered, quickly ejecting the USB drive and packing up her laptop. Who? I asked, my heart pounding. Jordan's face was pale as he moved to the window, peering out into the rain. I don't know. But whoever it is, they're not here to talk. Back door, Sophie said, motioning for us to move. We slipped out into the rain. The document case and USB drive clutched tightly in my hands. The storm masked the sound of our footsteps as we ran toward the woods. But I could feel the presence of our pursuers closing in. We need to get this to someone who can help, I said breathlessly. And we will, Sophie promised. But first, we need to survive the night. The weight of the truth pressed against me, heavy and unrelenting. Whatever my grandmother and father had started, it was now my burden to carry, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. But deep down, I knew there was no turning back. In the golden glow of the setting sun, the Legacy Arts Foundation opened its doors to a new generation of dreamers. The once cold corporate building was now a vibrant gallery filled with life, creativity, and purpose. As I stood before my grandmother's portrait, her kind eyes seemed to tell me I had done enough. I had finally honored her truth. This journey had cost me more than I could have imagined, but it had also taught me life's most profound lesson. Real power comes not from control but from courage, authenticity, and love. My father's sacrifice, my grandmother's wisdom, and my own struggles had all led to this moment. Now, I had the chance to rewrite my family's story, creating a legacy of hope and integrity. Thank you for watching Life Stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales that remind us of the power of truth.